Apex Online Racing is sponsored by Elgato, who created this lovely Stream Deck. For more information about the Stream Deck, the link is in the description below.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Apex Online Racing YouTube channel, where today we continue the AOR Project Cars 2 GT3 Season 16 of the Tier 1 PC League. We have round 7, and as you can see, it is at Silverstone. We have just gone live with our qualifying session. Drivers are coming just out onto the circuit now. I'm quite cozy here in the commentary box after being absent last week, and a big thank you to King Kodiak and also Mashup Matt for filling in last week. Did an absolutely stellar job. But my name is Yorkie065. Joining me in the commentary box once again, as always, is Mashup Matt. How are you doing, man?
I'm very well, Yorkie. Thank you very much, everybody. Welcome. Glad to have you back, Yorkie, after last week, but you missed one hell of an event last time out. And of course, now we're on to round 9. The championship has moved to the British Isles and Silverstone. And if you were paying attention last week, we had one cracker of a double header, in which led to another new winner this season, our league coordinator Stefan Carey taking his first victory of the season. But we have a new championship leader again, as Strongest Avenger has regained his championship lead. He had a 2nd and a 5th place finish after capitalising on a poor result for the 2 Lamborghini drivers, but also Yogurt took victory as well at Zolder. He has now firmly thrust himself back into the championship, and I'm really looking forward to this event because they looked so close in the social races last night.
Yep, definitely, and you can see there on your screen the actual current championship standings. As Matt was just saying, Strongest Avenger now at the top. Yorgok thrusting himself up into 3rd position, just 37 points separating the top 3. Lumi is there in 4th, just 41 points behind Strongest Avenger, only 4 points behind Yorgok. Then you've got the likes of Alan, Moo, Andrex. As Turbo has jumped up a number of positions after the last round trip. It's now up into Knife Speedy Go there in 10th. You can see down through to the top 15. And if we look to the bottom half of the championship standings, you can see WMDR Martin there dropping down into the bottom half. We've got Hunzolti has now joined the league, having 2 8th place finishes in the last round. He now appears there in 20th position, as well as Ben Gasson. Should have been a very easy name to say. It's there in 27th position, and has managed to grab himself a few points, as we can see. But the drivers are now onto their flying laps. I'm currently watching Fubar. He's just come out of the loop section and is now onto the Wellington Straight, heading down towards the end of the first sector. He'll probably be our first driver actually setting a flying lap here this evening.
Yeah, so what times do you think we'll be expecting tonight, Matt? What do you think the pace is going to be, especially for the top guys?
Oh, I'm guessing it's going to be somewhere in and around the region of 58, 1 minute 58, 1 minute 57, that kind of region. I would have thought would be the expected times for a lot of these drivers at the sharp end of the field. Most drivers will probably be in and around the 59s, possibly 2-minute mark. Really depends on how well they can switch on the tyres here around this circuit. Well, it is one of those tracks that is quite punishing on the tyres, especially the left-hand side of the car, as there's a lot of right-handers, so tyre management could also potentially come into play for what is going to be a 90-minute race, I believe.
Yes, it's a long one tonight, isn't it?
Yeah, excellent. So, plenty of action to sink our eyes and teeth into with this one. And Fubar's just coming towards the end of the lap now, coming down into the Vale chicane, swinging the rear end of the car around as he flicks it into the corner. Comes out through the left-hander into the final turn now. It's going to be the first time that we're going to see pop up on the board, providing that it is a valid lap time. And he goes with a 2-minute 0.316. So eyes turn to Strongest Avenger. Also got Hunzolti there in the Porsche 911 up in front. Now we can see a couple of low 1 minute 59s. What's Strongest Avenger going to do though as he comes to the line now? Wow, a 57.8. Did possibly think a 57 might creep in there, but Strongest Avenger putting down a very firm stamp right here at the very beginning of this session.
Yeah, and he actually went a little bit faster than he did. No, actually, sorry, he's just a tenth off what he did in the social qualifying yesterday. So Strongest Avenger straight on the pace. And it seems as if that Aston Martin, from what I've seen, he's got it set up again very well for qualifying. It's got a very loose rear end, as we've seen. That's his sort of driving style with this Aston Martin. But the two Lamborghini drivers look strong as well. Lumi and Dynamite Alive, their race pace yesterday in their runs was particularly strong as well. So I think we're going to end up with a 3, maybe even a 4-way fight if Jorge can keep up his pace as well. So there's plenty of competition up there at the front. The main interest, well, not the main interest, but one of the big interests I had last night was the midfield. It was so close together with the likes of Tripp and Alan, Fubar. They were all very close to each other, so we're going to have battles all the way through the field, I believe, today.
Excellent. So you got your work cut out for you then, trying to keep up with all the battles.
Yes.
Excellent. So yeah, one very exciting race that we're going to be looking forward to. Very, very keen to see how the championship battle will unfold after this round. But as you say, the midfield battle, as it has been throughout the entire season, has been absolutely stellar and absolutely thrilling. See B. Cliff there in the live chat saying that Andrex could be on a podium. Unfortunately, Andrex hasn't been able to make it for this race this evening, so we won't be seeing an Andrex podium tonight, but hopefully he'll be back for next week, and hopefully we can see an Andrex podium then. But welcome to everyone in the live chat. It's great to have you along, accompanying us here in the commentary box. If you have any questions, feel free to fire them away, and we'll try and pick them up and answer them throughout the stream here this evening. Just seeing Kiwanik at the moment. He's into the final sector now. He's got a Lamborghini up there just in front of him. I've also noticed that Alan has got a red marker to his name, indicating that he has a penalty, as most likely a one-place grid penalty for speeding in the pit lane. But it seems that pretty much all the drivers are out on the circuit at the moment, trying to set lap times. Kiwanik just goes and improves on his lap time, going and popping himself up into 12th place. As we take a look at Lumi coming through the first sector, had some real troubles last time round, I noticed, from his results.
Yes, he's had a couple of difficult races, particularly the last 3 races. I think he had contact with somebody in one of the races at Zolder last week, and considering that he hadn't been out of the top 4 for most of the season, he's got a little bit of recovering to do to make up for those 3 results recently, but he has definitely got the pace to challenge for victory. And yesterday he proved very strong when it came to fighting with his teammate Dynamite Alive and Strongest Avenger as well. So don't count him out for victory today. I think he's got a point to prove and plenty to gain here at Silverstone.
Yeah, definitely. Speaking of Lumi's teammate Dynamite Alive, he actually had a worse showing last week with an 11th and a 19th position in the 2 races. Not a huge difference in points between them, 29.5 points in total, which can easily be recovered here in this round. It's 50 points for a win. I believe you also get a point for being on pole position and a point for the fastest lap of the race, so a total of 52 points on offer. But obviously the 2 drivers very similarly matched in pace, and if they can bag themselves a 1-2, do very nicely for the team championship, which they are leading by a cracking 140 points at the moment over Alrex Racing, comprised of Alan and Andrex. So the V10 gang going very, very strong. And at the moment, Dynamite Alive is in 3rd position. Lumi is there down in 7th. He'll be looking to improve. He's got 6 more minutes in order to find a time. We're just seeing the kinky one at the moment coming into turn 3. The village hairpin, nice and tidy, although the rear end looked a little bit loose there as he's trying to get onto the power and bring the car over to the right to open up the loop hairpin, the turn 4. It seemed fairly good and stable through Raintree. It's actually quite a difficult circuit to try and get a good setup for, because despite the high speeds and the long straights, it's actually a circuit that requires quite a fair amount of downforce. You can really make up a fair amount of time going through Copse, Maggots, Beckett's, through Stowe Corner, turns 1 and 2, as well as Brooklyn. So quite a few corners around the track. You can actually really put the downforce to use and actually find some time if you've got the car set up very, very nicely for yourself.
Yeah, it's a deceptive track, this, isn't it? You know, we've just seen just coming out of Woodcut and Copse. Now we're just coming down to Maggots and Beckett's, the famous Maggots and Beckett's. These corners are very, very fast. It looks like the kinky one's just getting out of the way there of one of the Lamborghinis coming through. And these are the corners that you were saying earlier. Of course, these were the ones that'll be putting the most strain on the tyres as well. So, yeah, this circuit in its revised format since, I believe it was 2012. I can't entirely remember when it was redone, but it's proven itself, I would very much say. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to this because, as you say, we've seen a lot of the front runners, especially Strongest Avenger, with a very loose setup. It all just depends who's got the right balance. So this is going to be a test of the drivers' engineering skills as well as their driving skills.
Yeah, it was 2010 that this layout first came in, but of course it still used the old start grid because the current, well, what we now use as the wing paddock building hadn't actually completed construction until 2011. And I was actually working in the wing building when it first opened up. The MotoGP race, yeah, it was the first time that it opened, and only half the building internally was actually fully completed. So it was basically the half that's closest to turn 1. There was a hospitality suite that you could enter in straight away, where they were auctioning bikes for the MotoGP, and then the next room along, the next big hall that could probably seat a decent, somewhere between 100 to 400 people. You could probably fit a little bit more in, but just like seating wise, it probably fits about that many people in. We're in one of the hospitality suites there, but beyond that, the building hadn't actually fully completed construction hospitality wise. Obviously all the garages and everything were all set up there, but yeah, 2011 was the first year that they used the new grid and paddock area. Just a little bit of history for you there.
Well, I hope people are writing that down, because that's going to end up in a pub quiz, I'm sure, in a few years' time.
Quite possibly, yeah. I actually worked at Silverstone in both 2010 and 2011. 2010 for the MotoGP and the Formula 1. I was in a hospitality suite just at the entrance to Maggots, just after Copse, so after turn 1, and then worked again 2011 for the MotoGP. Then I was actually there watching for the 2011 F1 race. I went with one of my very good mates, Graham. We both went there and watched from turn 1, actually, Abbey. But that was the year that they banned the exhaust blown diffusers on the F1 cars. It's a little bit shame, just for that one race as well, the one that we were there for.
Oh, he's quite rightly flexing now, ladies and gentlemen. That's a brilliant story. That's absolutely fantastic. So at the moment, we got Strongest Avenger faster, some 0.8 of a second faster than Dynamite Alive. But this is sort of the gap I saw in the social rounds yesterday. He said Strongest Avenger has got this car set up for qualifying. He likes to get to the front, and then he can sort of muscle his way around. But the Lamborghinis will look to get their race pace up and going as well. Just having a quick look at Lumi here. He's in 6th place. He's behind Bosch Franz, actually, who's set a really decent lap time. He's up in 5th place on a 1:59.2. That's a good run for the Mercedes.
Yeah, Bosch has been showing some snippets of strong pace at various different points throughout the season. We've kind of seen him be up there in around 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th sort of position, and then unfortunately ends up either making a mistake or getting caught up in someone else's accident and drops down through the field. So luck hasn't really quite gone his way yet to really show his true pace. He has had a 5th place finish. That was in the first... I was in round 3 in the race 1 of round 3, and then he had an 8th place in race 2 of round 3. He has had a number of other top 10 finishing positions as well, but in the last 3 rounds he's only finished 1 race with a DNF in round 6 and a disconnect in the second race of last week at Zolder. So hopefully things will go his way a little bit more as we're into the final 20 seconds. He's just coming through the last couple of turns now, trying to hold on to the rear end of the Mercedes as it steps out on him a little bit there as he's applying the power. But will Beauge France improve on his lap time? He does not. Near enough 0.4 of a second slower. Both Strongest Avenger and Dynamite Alive into the pits. They will not be improving on their lap times. We're seeing Cinderfell at the moment. It's just come out of Luffield. There's a few cars behind him as well, but he's heading over the old start-finish straight down towards Copse Corner. Flinging it in, car looking nice and stable, not taking too much curb on the exit, which is good. It's quite a heavily serrated curb there. It can be quite easy to unsettle the car, and it can easily pull you out wide as well. Nice and smooth coming through Maggots now into Beckett's a little bit deep. That's going to compromise his line. Coming through the right-hander here, but he manages to gather it back up. May have hurt his lap time though. Lumi's managed to get himself up into a provisional P2. I say provisional P2. He is starting P2 unless someone else can improve on their lap time and beat him to it. So Lumi will be starting ahead of his teammate Dynamite Alive. Here is Yoguk coming out of the penultimate turn, coming through the final corner now. Does he improve on his lap time as he comes to the line? He did. He pops himself up into 5th position ahead of Beauge France. He'll be very, very happy with that. Beauge France will be a little bit gutted by that one. Here is Unzolti. Just chasing down the Ferrari, coming down the hangar straight as he flings the car into Stowe Corner. Obviously looking to improve his lap time. He's currently a provisional P9. Do you reckon he'll be able to improve? Matt, what's your betting that he does?
I'm going to go with he will improve. Whether he's going to improve enough to move himself up a position. But while we were talking through that, look, he's just reported his lap actually. While we were talking through all that, look who's moved up into P2.
Wow, yeah, good spot. Moo's managed to pop himself up there, ahead of the B10 gang. Very nice, impressive lap. Puts him at 0.7 of a second, bang on off of Strongest Avenger's lap time. That puts him in a fairly good place for the beginning of the race as Tony Clifton comes across the line. MP12 didn't quite see if the Kinky one improved, but here is your official qualifying standings with Strongest Avenger taking pole position with Moo there in 2nd place, Lumi in 3rd, Dynamite Alive picking up 4th position. Yogurt will start the grid in 5th place with Beauge France there in 6th. Alan in 7th, Speedy Go in 8th place. Alan has the 1 grid place penalty, so Alan will actually be starting 8th. Speedy Go will be starting 7th. Hunzolti in 9th position, and then Fuba will round out the top 10.
In 11th, we have Trip just ahead of Tony Clifton. As Turbo, who finished 3rd in one of the races last time out at Zolder. He's in 13th, ahead of Kierannik and WMDR Martin. Jack Game starting 16th, ahead of Atomic. Esteban Carrera, who is Stefan Carey. If anyone is getting a bit confused, he was last week's race winner. He's ahead of Luke. Anton in 20th, Zenzik in 21st, ahead of Nidlap. Cameron comes in ahead of Gwegwin, and VXX Vitra comes home 25th. The Kinky one outdoes pretty much that part of the Celtic bromance that's going on between him and Cinderfell. He starts 26th ahead of Cinderfell's 27th, and Nat in the Ferrari rounds out the grid.
So, with qualifying over, we advance onto the race then. So we got 43 laps. That includes our 1 manual formation lap, so 42 racing laps. Are going to be approximately 90 minutes of racing action that we have for you here. Conditions looking pretty stable. We're starting off in light clouds. It does look like there'll be a few more clouds building throughout the course of the race, but nothing that is rain threatening. And the start time locally in game is 2 o'clock in the afternoon with 2 times time acceleration. So the race will probably go on till about 5 o'clock, or 5 p.m. in game time. So the shadows start to get a little bit longer, but not long enough really to warrant any kind of difficulty with regards to visibility in terms of, you know, going into sunset or anything like that.
No, and I believe they have a mandatory pit stop tonight as well, don't they?
They do indeed. Very good point.
So that could shuffle the pack around a little bit, because we've seen a couple of times this season people choosing a different strategy over the other, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So as the drivers just prepare themselves, go on, you put me on the spot a couple of weeks ago. Let's have you. Who do you think is going to win today?
Oh, that's a very difficult question. I think Strongest Avenger, judging by his qualifying pace, certainly seems to be there in the pound seat, especially starting in P1. It's all just a matter of whether his fuel tank will be able to last the entire race distance, and also if he can keep the tyres under him. I'm going to fire a question back your way from last night as well. Did any of the drivers actually pit to change tyres?
That's a very good question, because some of them were trying to figure out whether they could or not. But looking at some of the pit stops, it seems that a few of them did change tyres. But I do recall some of the front runners, they went so long that they pitted and didn't even bother, and then just came out and did the last few laps on the tyres that they started with. So it's all a question, as you say, of who can keep the tyres in order. So it's going to be a very strategic race, this one, as well as a very hard-fought one.
Yeah, that's interesting, because the hard tyres can probably go on for about 2 hours, but obviously you will get the fresher rubber, which will be quicker, but the time to change tyres is usually about 16 odd seconds or so, I think, if I remember correctly off the top of my head, which obviously is an awful lot of time to be sat stationary in the pit lane for. So it might be a gamble, an option for someone to gamble potentially to try and do something towards the end, but yeah, I think your observation that you picked up last night of some of the front runners trying to go the full race distance without changing tyres is probably the one that I reckon 95% of the drivers will end up doing here this evening.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, well, even if you're able just to get the tyres towards perhaps even the last 3, 4, 5 laps, maybe, as you say, they're not going to waste time sitting in the pit lane. They can just get out there and control the pace. I know Strongest Avenger was trying to eke out his fuel to the end of the race yesterday, that he was sitting in behind one of the lapped cars, put the fuel to lean and just coasted behind. I think it was the Kinky one, or one of the Audis at the back. So he's been trying an economy run for this race. So we'll just have to wait and see how these strategies play out. So there was plenty of chat yesterday about what different drivers were going to do. Possibly they're trying to send mixed messages to their rivals as well. So all the types of games are being played in this GT3 league this season.
Yeah, speaking of economy, you can see Strongest Avenger there, sat in 4th gear, just coasting the car along. He's not really doing much in terms of like braking or anything else like that, just a shallow, steady throttle input, obviously trying to save as much fuel on that Aston Martin as possible. Either to try and do it all on one tank, which I don't think is going to be possible in that Aston Martin. It's quite a thirsty big old girl is that car, so he'll probably need to do a splash and dash, but obviously trying to minimize the amount of time and the amount of fuel that he's going to need for the remainder of the session. But here we go then, the drivers forming up into their 2x2 formation for the race start. Strongest Avenger still doing the last little bits of tyre weaving just to try and maintain some temperature and pressure in those tyres. Speed dropping down to 80 kilometers an hour, as you can see the rest of the field in the background forming up in the correct positions. It's any time between now and the start finish line that Strongest Avenger can put his foot down, and we are underway racing. Strongest Avenger immediately moving over to the left hand side to open up the first corner, trying to carry as much speed through that as possible. I've got Moo and Lumi going side by side between the two. Was that contact between the two? It is contact! Lumi's being spun around by Moo there going through that second corner. Can he recover back onto the circuit safely? He's got a whole gaggle of cars coming up behind him, but Lumi does manage to find a bit of space to rejoin the track. I think he was down in 18th of position. That is going to be massively detrimental for his championship hopes. Moo has gone and dropped down into 6th position. That's gone and promoted Dynamite Alive and Yorgok up, and as you can see, Strongest Avenger with a gap of a second and a half already at the end of the first sector, getting that clear air that he will be wanting to try and pull away from the rest of the field, who are filed down into a single file formation. Things looking relatively calm. I think there may have been a little bit of drama at the very back of the grid as well, because yeah, Lumi managed to find that gap and get back out onto the circuit just after the that little bit of contact there coming through that second turn.
Oh, what a disaster for him. You know, he said that he needed...
Oh!
Trip gets well out of shape on the exit of Copse and just about manages to catch the back end of that Lamborghini. We mentioned that Lumi had a little bit of a tough last few races, but that's not going to help him at all, as I think I've just seen... Yes, the Porsche has just gone off at the exit of Beckett's, and that's allowed Moo back up into 7th place. Now, we didn't really get to have a good look at that incident, unfortunately, as here comes Fubar now. He's having a go at Moo around the outside. Will he be able to do it around the outside of Stowe? He's hanging on. It's because he's just getting squeezed out by the Lamborghini. He's got the inside line now down to the Vale chicane. Late on the brakes. Has he made the Moo stick? It looks like he has, and Fubar moves himself up ahead of Moo. Well, yeah, what a disastrous start for Lumi, but he's already fought himself back up into 15th already. Let's just hope there's not too much damage on that Lambo.
Yeah, I think it was just a slight brush between the two cars. It didn't look like anything major in terms of a heavy impact that could incur damage. As I think is that the kinky one that just went across? That can't have been the kinky one. No, it's Kieran, sorry, my apologies, who went across the inside there in turn 1, having run wide on the exit of on the inside of turn 2, having run wide on the exit of turn 1. He's got Jack Game right underneath his rear wing as they come through the loop section and now into Aintree. This is a battle for 15th position. Lumi, as you said, managing to get himself back up into 16. I think has now managed to clear the McLaren of Aston Turbo, and indeed he has. He's onto the back of WMDR Martin as Jack Game goes up the inside of Kieran there into Brooklands corner. It's 15th position now for him. Here's Lumi on the inside of Martin coming off the exit of Luffield up towards Woodcote, who have the inside line there, but both drivers will be completely flat out. Lumi will just have the shorter line, and Martin does end up slotting in behind. So Lumi making a number of positions fairly quickly. His next target is going to be Tony Clifton.
A couple of drivers into the pits as well. The kinky one is in. I've just seen Anton leaving the pits as well. So as you said, maybe there was a little bit of an incident at turn 1 on the opening lap, but this is a dream for Strongest Avenger at the moment. He's got a 1.5 second lead now as they come towards the end of the second racing lap. It's up there going into Stowe, so he is definitely putting the hammer down, and he's actually lost a little bit of time coming to there, although it is just now starting to pick back up again. So Dynamite Alive running second, Yogurt is running third, and we were talking about him in qualifying, but Boge Franz has had a good start. He's in 4th place as well, so a decent start for the Mercedes driver. He's ahead of the other Ginetto, Speedy Go.
Yep, he's obviously pushing on hard. You can see there he's losing a little bit of ground to Yogurt, 2.5 seconds at the moment, but goes and sets his fastest lap of the race so far. Here is Moo looking at the back of Fubar, staring at the back of the Renault RS01s, which, as we said at the start of the season, haven't really seen too much of in the previous seasons here at AOR, but there is a number of drivers who have elected to pick the Renault this time round for season 16, which is good to see. A bit more diversity in the field. It's interesting to see that Strongest Avenger locked up on the entry to Stowe there, despite having ABS running. He's managing to maintain that gap though. It's still lurking in around 1.5 seconds as Fubar goes a little bit deep into Brooklands. This is allowing Moo to close up a little bit more, and will probably be sat right there underneath the rear wing coming off the exit of Luffield.
Got the Porsche of I don't even know how to say his name, the Hunsela, I think it is, behind them. He looked decently strong yesterday as well, as Moo has a good run now looking towards Copse. To take a brave man to make a move there though. But yeah, I'm just having a look now down the order. We've got a massive bunch of cars sort of running in line with each other, pretty much from Lumi, who's actually just got past Trip, all the way down to Stefan Carey, who we're watching now, going through Maggots and Beckett. So they're all pretty even at the moment. There's not really any big gaps. And Stefan's lost it going into the start of Maggots. Well, you and I are pretty much the biggest commentators' curses ever, and I think we've just pulled a fast one on him there. Sorry about that, Stefan, but he has now dropped into the clutches of Zentek and down to 20th place.
Yeah, his tyres won't be too happy about with him over that one either. That looked to be quite a substantial slide. He just flipped the colour in right, and the front went, but the rear end didn't. Just decided to swap ends on him. So yeah, his tyres are really going to suffer there. WMDR Martin here in 13th position has got As Turbo for relatively close company behind Tony Clifton, just a smidge fraction a little bit further away up in front of him, as drivers seem to be hanging in pretty consistent 2-minute range at the moment. A few 2:01s, a few in the 2-minute zeros. Dynamite Alive has it's now 2 seconds to Strongest Avenger despite the slower lap time last time round, but I think that could actually be due to Strongest Avenger picking up a time penalty, and in that process of me saying that, Dynamite Alive has also picked up a time penalty. In fact, Speedy Go has got one, and Lumi's just picked up one as well as Tony Clifton. They're all picking up time penalties now, just as that has been brought to our attention. So yeah, usually the lap times there on the left-hand side in the standings, if drivers pick up penalties, that penalty usually gets added to their lap as well in terms of their lap time. So that's why that works there. And we've got Alan having a look to the outside on the entry, coming into Maggots, sweeping round past Speedy Go, and manages to get the move done before they get into the braking zone for the right-hander. His next target is now going to be Speedy Go's teammate of Yogurt.
Alan, who was involved in plenty of incidents last week at Zolder, but he's running well. He's up there in 5th place. He was, well, the two Mercedes, unfortunately Andrek's not here this evening, but they were running some formation flying yesterday, and they looked fairly strong. They could be in the battle now for 3rd place, of course, with Lumi trying to make his way back through the pack now. There's a good opportunity for one of these drivers to maybe get themselves onto the podium, but looking at the rate Lumi's making his way through, they're going to have to pick up the pace a little bit. But the first driver under the 2-minute mark as Strongest Avenger sets a 1:59.8, so he's now got his lead up to some 2.5 seconds. Let's check in with Lumi then, as he is running in 10th. He's up behind Fubar Mu, and as he goes wide again at turn 1, pushing very, very hard, and actually catches the grass as they go towards Village as well. So he'll be very frustrated, I'm sure, but if he can keep his head now, just make up a few more positions in the next couple of laps, he's still got a good chance of being there in that fight for 3rd.
Yeah, excuse me. Yeah, he was just got caught out by the bump going through turn 1 there. It's quite a tricky corner because you want to carry as much speed as you possibly can going through it, but the tyres are fully loaded up, and then just for good measure there's a bump in the road as well, which can really unsettle the car, which I think is what unsettled Lumi and sent them into a slight little fishtail that he had there, and managed to gather back up. He hasn't lost too much time to Hunzolti up in front. He's continuing to pull the gap to Trip behind. So he's making fairly good progress, having got up into the top 10 already. He's still got plenty of time in order to get back up towards the podium positions as well. He's a total of 14.5 seconds off the back of Strongest Avenger. Only 7 or 8 seconds off the back of Bogue France, who currently occupies 3rd position. So it's not an impossible task, but it's going to be one that he just needs to play the patient game and steadily work his way through the field.
Yes, it's not like last week as Hunsler goes a little bit wide going into Stowe. This could give Lumi a chance to go on the inside, and has he got past? Yes, he has. So that's another position made up for Lumi. But yeah, as you say, it's not like last week where the shorter races, you know, that a lot of drivers were getting their elbows out. He's got plenty of opportunities to make his way through, and now he's right behind the man who tipped him into that spin. So considering it was only 5 laps ago or 6 laps ago that he was spun around, he's now back on the tail of the man who put him in that position.
Yeah, interestingly, Mu hasn't really shown too much pace so far here in this opening part of the race. I think he was kind of on the back foot from the start of the race, and then I think with the contact between himself and Lumi, I think he lost a number of positions from that. But ever since, he hasn't really shown any visible fight to try and get past Fubar and keep pace with the guys up in front. So possibly had a very good setup in qualifying. Might be struggling a little bit here in the race, or alternatively you could just be thinking of the long game and trying to preserve the car and the tyres a little bit more to retain a little bit more life towards the end. But Lumi is now right there underneath the rear wing, as we can see. He's picking up a slipstream, he's pulling out of that, having a bit of a look coming towards Copse, but he's not going to be close enough for that move there. Instead he's going to follow him on through, less than a car length between the pair of them, as they're now on the run towards Maggots and Beckett. Doesn't quite have the run or the overlap to make a move here, so he's going to have to follow him through this sequence of turns, try and focus on getting a good line through this final right-hander, which it looks like he's doing so. Get the good drive coming off the corner. He's in a pretty good position now, so he'll be picking up the slipstream. He's got a double slipstream as well. Obviously Mu having the slipstream off of Fubar. Will he be able to make the move coming down towards Stowe? Mu looks to the inside of Fubar, and Lumi just holding ground for the moment, watching the two fight in front of him. But now this could be Lumi's opportunity, as Mu is diving off into the pit lane and slipping on through. Lumi going for the move down the inside, coming into the braking zone for Vale, and gets that move done rather nicely. So in a space of about 400 odd metres, Lumi gaining 2 positions, now up into 8th place.
Yeah, it worked out well for him, that, didn't it? That manoeuvre with Mu now making a very early pit stop. So, yeah, I wonder why he's gone so early. Didn't see a lot of the drivers doing this last night. So he's gone for a very alternative strategy compared to some of the others. But that was a very well-timed move there by Lumi. Fubar was just put off a little bit, I think, by Mu perhaps looking to go to the inside of Stowe. That put him a little bit wide, and then when Mu dived into the pit lane, Fubar came back across the track and allowed Lumi to sneak up the inside. So plenty of progress being made by the Lambo driver. He's now got some 4 seconds or so, 3.5 seconds to make up to Speedy Goes, just behind Alan. And actually, while we've been watching all that lot, Yogurt has moved up into 3rd place.
Yeah, I was just about to highlight that as well. So we've just got a little bit of lap traffic the drivers are trying to deal with. So Alan is there on the back of Beauge France. Quite a few drivers now picking up the penalties. Here is As Turbo in 13th position, still chasing down WMDR Martin, and just having a look at the standings board, seeing that the gap between Strongest Avenger and Dynamite Alive is still continuing to steadily increase, now up to just over 3 seconds the gap there. So Strongest running good, consistent, solid pace at the moment, which is will probably be exactly to his plan. And yeah, As Turbo doesn't really seem to be gaining too much on WMDR Martin at the moment. Gap lurking in and around a second. A couple of drivers, Tony Clifton I think just running a little bit wide there going through Stowe. That could be a potential spark of inspiration for him to try and close up, especially if WMDR Martin kind of gets slightly held up there, but it didn't look like he did. It looks like he just closed a few extra car lengths onto the back of the Renault.
Yeah, I keep looking at Martin's car. It's like a dog with a waggly tail just at the front of it with that windscreen wiper going for most of the race. But he's right now behind Tony Clifton. Just keeping an eye on the lap times. Basically, there's only 3 drivers in the 2-minute flats, and that's Strongest Avenger, Dynamite Alive, and his teammate Lumi, who is now cruising up to the back of Speedy Go, as Martin now looks like he's got a little bit of a chance here too, and that's, I don't know whether that's a lap car or someone's gone off in the background, but Martin has managed to get past Tony Clifton. So Clifton obviously ran a little bit wide on the exit of Aintree, and he's managed to go around the outside, although he's trying to come back down the inside, but Martin cuts him off. He's still got the Luffield and Woodcut sections to go, but now As Turbo's on the back of them as well. So this fight has just closed up a little bit.
Yep, nice 3-way train, and I just saw in the background that I think it was one of the back markers. I think both Kiewanik and the Kinky One are now running together. It was the 2 Thrustmaster liveried Audis. Whoa, WMDR Martin there clipping the brake marker board, smashing that to pieces on the entry to Copse Corner. Tony Clifton pulling out, having a little bit of a look to the inside of WMDR Martin, coming into Maggots, who wasn't close enough and was more just using it as a bit of a distraction and kind of presenting himself in the mirrors. It's kind of dropping him back in towards the clutches of As Turbo once again, as they're all within a second of each other at the moment. And actually in front there's another 3-car train as well, with Tripp, Hunzolti and also Fubar. Tripp providing a nice cameraman style angle of the 2 cars up in front. Hunzolti not really finding a way past Fubar as of yet, but obviously looking to pressurise and see if he can force a mistake or error and see if he can snap that 8th position away from him.
Fubar looking solid at the moment, and that's a cue for him to spin off now down to turn 1 if I've ever set one up. So he's running well in that Renault. We saw him fighting earlier with Mu and Lumi as well, but these three having a fair old scrap with each other. Just perhaps if they could have a go at each other. I'm just going to click back to Alan actually, because he's all over Bosch France, and it's a Mercedes versus Mercedes battle.
Yep, coming down into Brooklyn's corner. Alan on the outside trying to find a way past there, but Brooklyn's is quite a long left-hander. It had his work cut out for him on that one, and Bogue France holds on to that 4th position for the moment. Certainly seems like the car's leaning an awful lot going through the left-hander, and slight four-wheel drifting as well on the entry, just carrying a little bit too much speed going in. That's obviously going to hurt the tyres a little bit, scrub a bit of life out of them, and put a little bit more heat through the surface than they were probably like. But both the drivers were nice and tidy through Copp's corner there. Now they come into Maggots and Beckett's, see whether they can gather things back up. You can see Speedy Go and Lumi in the background of the shots there, closing up a little bit more, but it's both still got a fair amount of work to come up onto the back of these two. Seems like Yogurt's starting to pull away from these guys as well, as Dynamite Alive still keeping that gap to Strongest Avenger in and around 3 seconds. It hasn't really changed much, unless there was a penalty potentially on the previous lap. I don't know. Well, yeah, both Strongest Avenger and Dynamite Alive now have got 2-second penalties. It was 1 second previously when we last looked at them.
Yeah, they're pushing very hard, and a lot of the drivers picked up penalties yesterday. I think, look at the Tomix one. Oh, that's a 31-second penalty. He won't be too happy with that. But someone picked up a 50-second penalty, I think, in the social race last night. So I don't know what happened there, but yeah, the drivers pushing the limits of the track very much so in this race. But Alan looking strong here. He looks as if he could well be on for 4th place. But what's the difference between these two Mercedes then? Where is Alan probably a little bit stronger than Bosch France at the moment?
So the car that Alan is driving is the Mercedes-Benz SLS. It's an older generation GT3 car, whereas Bogue France's Mercedes AMG, slightly different branch of the Mercedes brand, is the newer version. It's not the newest. There has been a newer Mercedes AMG that has released recently in the last year or so, with a much bigger, more aggressive front grille. And personally, I think the one that Bosch France is actually driving is the better looking of the three. But Alan's certainly serves better in terms of straight line speed, but it kind of sucks everywhere else. Probably isn't kind of the right way to describe that, but the AMG is just better in terms of its aerodynamics, the braking, still has good torque, and grunt coming off the corners, probably not quite as quick in a straight line as the SLS, but probably produces better aero efficiency with less drag, but more downforce at the same time.
So here's Lumi then. He's now onto the back of Speedy Go as he looks to the outside coming into the Vale chicane, and I think Speedy Go went a little bit deep there. He's going to compromise his exit now as they come through to the final corner, and Lumi's going to have a chance up the inside. One of them's going to have to duck out of it. They're still side by side as Speedy Go goes off the track. He's just about keeping that Ginetta ahead, but with the inside line I would expect Lumi to make it past, and he does. A nice, fair, aggressive move by Lumi, and he's made his way up into 6th place. That was a good move, that was.
Yeah, Speedy Go just making it very tight on the exit of Vale, and Lumi had to kind of back out the throttle a little bit as he took the apex curb on the inside of Club Corner, which kind of just hurt his momentum and trying to slide on past. So there was a moment where they were pretty much head to head going down that start-finish straight, but Speedy Goat thinking patience is the better part of Valor and letting Lumi on through, so that settled that one trip. And Hanzoltia managed to get past Fubar, both drivers slotting themselves ahead of the Renault RS01, but Hanzolti still ahead of Trip at the moment, just both of them having gained a position. And this seems like a fairly close fight for the midfield battle just here.
Yes, that Porsche, the only Porsche we've got in the field, looking very nicely balanced now as Tripp looks to get as close as he can through Cox to set himself up as we go towards Maggot and Beckett. See how close he can get here as we go on board now. It's always crucial through these fast-flowing corners that you don't lose too much momentum and you get a good slingshot, especially out of this final right-hander now onto the hanger straight as Zolta goes a little bit wide, but he's got a decent gap now to protect as they come down the hanger straight. And for the grunt that Lamborghini's had, that Porsche looks like it can hold its own in a straight line, actually.
Yeah, it's reasonably quick. It's not bad. I kind of agreed with you and thought that Hanzolti was running a little bit wide coming off the exit of Beckett and potentially hurting his run, but he managed to hold it together fairly well, possibly putting a fair amount of scrub through the tyres, but Trip certainly seems to be a little bit more stable coming through the final few corners as he managed to close up a few car lengths towards the back of the Porsche as they begin lap 13. Coming into the first turn now, both seem fairly settled. Trip just taking a slightly slower approach through the corner and holding a slightly tighter line on the exit, which does kind of help for turn 2. But Hanzolti was better through turn 3 there. Now coming in through turn 4, look to be relatively even between the two cars, the gap just kind of stretching out with the accordion concertina effect that you get with the cars slowing down and accelerating distance apart from each other. So yeah, fairly equal between those two drivers. It'll be interesting to see how long that battle lasts throughout the duration of the race.
A lot of these cars looking very equal, and speaking of equal, we come back to this battle for fourth now. Alan still cooped up behind the other Mercedes of Beauge France, and they've got Lumi behind them, but Lumi's not exactly homing in on them as quickly as I thought he would. That's Beauge France getting very much out of shape. And now can Alan take advantage now as they come onto the hanger straight? He's going to have a much better run now off the exit of Beckett, and you would think coming down the hanger straight now, he should be able to hold it round the outside. As they go into Stowe, they're side by side. As they come down the hanger straight, can Beauge France keep the inside line? It looks like he has. So, what a good run. He eventually got Beauge France on the inside. I thought at that point, Alan had him.
Yeah, I would have thought so as well, but we know that Alan is quite a patient driver. So he will kind of back out of a move if he isn't 100% sure that he can actually complete it safely. So I think it just kind of let that one slide. Being there on the outside of Stowe Corner is a pretty difficult one to pull off unless you are ahead into the braking zone. But this is allowing Lumi now to start to close up a fair amount more. Two drivers both in the 2:02.4s on the previous lap, and Lumi was a 2-minute flat 0.2, so 2.2 seconds gain that Lumi took out of the two cars in front. And there you can see his vision of them much clearer than it would have been a lap or two ago, as they're still running nose to tail. But yeah, do you reckon Lumi will make short work of these two, or do you reckon he'll get caught up behind for a few laps?
I would imagine the mood he's in, if he has an opportunity, he's gonna take it. And I think with the pace of that Lamborghini as well, he will be looking to get past as quickly as possible. But it all depends how that battle, as you say, ahead of him resolves itself. They've said they're fairly even. I think even if Alan was to get past Beauge France, he's not going to clear off into the distance. So I think if Lumi can get as close as possible, he will look to take them at the quite soon. I'm just having a look down the leaderboard actually. just as we were looking through that. But I would imagine he'd make quite light work of these two.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see once he does get close enough to try and strike and make a move as to whether an opportunity will quickly present itself or whether he'll have to sit and wait behind. Alternatively, he could dive into the pit lane and play the strategy game in that sense. There is a few gaps starting to form in the field now, but obviously in doing so he'll have to work his way back through past the cars once again, unless they all pit relatively soon, which I doubt most of them will probably be wanting to go for as long as they possibly can until the last dying moment. So the two-way fight now becomes a three-way fight with Lumi coming in within half a second. Two cars in front taking a relatively tight approach coming into the loop there, which is the line that can sometimes work if you can get the rotation going through the apex of the corner to line yourself up for a good exit. Otherwise it's better to kind of sacrifice the exit of village and try and open up the loop a fair amount more for yourself. Lumi with his fastest first sector of the race so far, and just going a little bit deep there on the entrance to Luffield. It certainly seems like the two cars in front throwing the car around a little bit more, whereas Lumi looks a little bit more relaxed and a little bit more patient with the car.
Yeah, I got to agree with you there. Those Mercs do look like they're throwing themselves into these corners. Of course, Bosch France trying to defend and Alan trying to get past. But we'll see now as they come through Maggots and Beckett just how close Lumi can get to the back of Alan and Alan to the back of Bosch France. It looks as if on the entrance to Maggots and Beckett and through this complex, that Lamborghini looks very, very strong. It looks as if he's going to have a really good run now out onto the hangar straight. Let's see now if he can pick up this slipstream and slingshot past, although he's not gaining an awful lot of ground. And I don't think he's going to have a chance to make a move here into Stowe. It's going to be late on the brakes. He goes up the inside, and just as I say it, Lumi finds a way through, and he has now split the Mercedes. That was a nice move considering he didn't really have as much of a run as I thought he would have done up to Stowe. He was very late on the brakes and moves himself up into 5th place. And with that kind of aggression, I wouldn't be at all surprised if he's past Bosch France as they head down towards Brooklands.
Yeah, they got a little bit of lap traffic up in front in the form of Enton as well, so that could possibly come into play and help Lumi out in trying to work an overtaking opportunity. I think that move that he pulled off on Allen was a mixture of just having a better, more stable car underneath him, slash also two drivers had a little bit of tension after the round last week, and obviously not wanting to add to that, both of them playing it relatively safe in terms of giving each other plenty of space. But now this could be Lumi's opportunity here coming into Brooklands. He's showing his nose and he goes for the move down the inside as Enton is staying very cleanly out of the way there. Bogue France tries to hold it around the outside, but Lumi slams that door shut as they come into Luffield now, and that's Lumi now up into 4th place, being released. He's got 5.5 second gap to work to try and close down onto Jorgurk, but I reckon he'll be pretty happy with getting past those two drivers fairly quickly, don't you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Considering he got one Mercedes, I can guarantee he would have wanted to get past the other one just as quickly. So yeah, very good work there from Lumi. He's back up into 4th now. Now comes the challenge as to whether he can close down Jorgurk, and we'll see what his true pace is, whether he can challenge. I don't think he'll be able to challenge the front two, but he's certainly in the hunt for that podium, and the fact he can still see Jorgurk will give him a little bit of encouragement as well.
Yeah, well, he's already taken 4/10 of a second out of Jorgurk so far on this lap, who is closing up on a back mark as well, which could be affecting his lap time. That's Bogue France going a little bit deep there into Stowe, so this could potentially be an opportunity for Alan to try and make a move, but he's just holding station for now, coming into the braking zone for Vale. Looks to be a little bit tidier coming through that chicane. Still staring at the back of the Mercedes AMG in front of him as Lumi is starting to extend that gap out with a low 2-minute 0.0. He's bang on pace with the leaders. His teammate Dynamite Alive in 2nd place and Strongest Avenger up in 1st. The gap between those two still lurking in and around 3.5 seconds. It hasn't really changed that much, whereas Jorgurk's been losing ground, but that Ginetta, not the best in terms of straight line speed. This could be a good opportunity for Alan now to try and make a move past Bogue France, although was that a slight lift there going through Aintree to just hold station behind?
Looked like it, didn't it? Whether he felt the car go in from underneath him for a split second or so. But yeah, I thought that as well as he came off Aintree onto the Wellington straight. But this is going to be a bit frustrating now. He's just seen Lumi go past the pair of them, and he would have probably been looking to take advantage of the fact that the Lambo was sort of putting Bogue France off his stride a little bit. So let's see what Alan can do now. It looks like Speedy Go's having a fairly lonely race behind them. He's some 4 seconds, 3.5 seconds behind them, and he's got an 8-second gap or so to the Porsche Hunsela behind him. But I would be starting to feel a little bit annoyed as Bogue France goes a little bit deep through the first part of Maggots. But I think Alan just playing it cautious. Didn't really take advantage of that, but you never know. When someone loses it in the middle of Maggots, you've got to be careful yourself.
Yeah, definitely, especially if they end up spinning across the track. It's just kind of a similar thing to a handful of laps ago. Bogue France just chucking the car in and the car breaking away from him. Actually, that's a very good point B. Cliff just mentioning in the live chat there. Possibly some fuel management going on from Alan here. The just like the Aston Martin, the Mercedes SLS, an older generation GT3 car, the fuel tank, or shall I say, the engine, is pretty thirsty, not very efficient compared to these newer GT3 cars, and therefore could be just happy, just sat in the slipstream behind Bogue France, just kind of looking after the car, trying to save fuel, obviously reducing the amount of drag going down the straights and the slipstream, and not really worrying about the positions up in front too much. You may possibly thinking that he's not quick enough to be taking those, and basically 5th position is the best that he can do here, and it's the position that's there immediately in front of him, just half a second away. Why wait? Well, why try and force a move when a potential opportunity can come later on in the race?
Yeah, that's very true, and very well noticed there by B. Cliff as well in the chat. Of course, I was talking about earlier some of the drivers running yesterday, practicing their sort of fuel-saving techniques through the race as well. So that could decide a few positions. Saying that, we're looking at Tripp now. He's got 63 left on his fuel tank. I think Alan had about 70, so he's protecting his fuel load quite well too. But they have all sort of strung out now. I'm just going to have a look at Jack Game and Moo. I think these two have been together for a few laps from what I've been noticing, and I think Moo hasn't long got past him.
Yeah, obviously Moo is trying to work his way back through the field after making an earlier pit stop, which is why he's down in 14th position. The lap times the previous lap suggest that Moo has certainly got the pace, and as you say, has just passed Jack Game. So unfortunately for Jack, he's probably going to see that Lamborghini in front of him start to slowly slip away and disappear off down the road. That's who's that? That's Kieranich just up in front of Moo, so that's his next target, who's there in 13th position. And then Asturbo in 12th. There's a good 7 seconds up the road from there. There he is, just going through the foreground of the shot from left to right. So yeah, Jack Game holding some reasonably solid pace at the moment, just not quite on the pace of the front runners. What's his championship been like so far? 13th and 16th, another 16th for 12th, 17th, and then, excuse me, 3 did not starts in the last 3 races. Obviously, last week being a double header, so he missed both of those. But he's here today. Where is he? 15th, so he's kind of in and around the average for his usual finishing position. But he'll probably be looking to try and get himself up and see if he can get another 12th position or even possibly 11th position, which will be his best so far this season.
Yeah, fairly consistent midfield runner has Jack been since he's moved up to Tier 1 from finishing second in Tier 2 last season. So a fairly strong season for him, as Tripp just shows his nose to the Porsche ahead going into Copse. These two have been at it for a fair amount as well. As you say, I think maybe some of the drivers, brought up some very good points over the last couple of minutes, just saving their cars for the back end of this race, just to try and have a little bit more performance towards the end, as Huntelaar went very wide. I've noticed actually that Porsche, he does like to take a wider exit out of Maggots and then onto through Chapel as well, and it seems to be serving him well so far.
Yeah, although I imagine he's probably taken a fair amount out of the tyres by doing that. The tight line that Tripp takes just probably isn't loading the tyres up quite as badly, and it's just looking after them a little bit better, so that could work in the Lamborghini driver's favour come later on the race if they continue to run as close to each other as they are. Hans Ulti has raced here in AOR in previous seasons, has got an awful lot of experience under his belt, especially in that Porsche, and is basically looking to see what kind of pace he has in comparison to the current drivers here in this season, as it looked like Tripp was having to wrestle the car back under control a little bit there in turn 3. Managed to do so, and that's obviously going to cost him time, has dropped him off the back of the Porsche a little bit. There is Anton in the white Mercedes AMG. He has a lap down, so he'll probably move out of these drivers' way. Indeed he does. Coming through Brooklands there, gives them plenty of space before rejoining the track, and he'll probably need to get out of the way of Fubart in half a lap or so. But yeah, it's a few various little battles going on through the field that we're keeping an eye on, and this is one that we definitely need to keep more of an eye on, as Alan is very close to the back of Boge France.
Yeah, I snapped to it there just as he was about a tenth behind. They were just about to go side by side as they went into the first part of Maggots, but these two are nigh on inseparable at the moment, as Lumi's disappearing off into the distance, and they're consistently lapping around about a quarter of a second, maybe 0.3 of a second faster per lap than Speedy Go behind. So it's a battle for the honour of Mercedes here between Alan and Boge Franz ahead of him. Boge Franz dives into the pit lane then. So an earlier stop for Boge Franz. Let's see where this is going to bring him out in. How much traffic is he going to be in? And let's see now what kind of pace Alan has got.
Yep, very interesting. So the SLS driver unleashed from his shackles and allowed to run free. It's now down to him as to how far he wants to run in this clear air. He's got 5 seconds to Lumi up in front. He was closing the gap down to Yogurt. The gap is now in and around 3 seconds from the 5-second gap that he had to close up previously. Gap still about 3.5 to 4 seconds to Speedy Go behind, but Boge Franz looks like he's come back out onto the circuit in 12th position, possibly close to Moo as well. Comes out just behind Asturbo and yeah, slots him ahead of Moo by 1.5 seconds or so. So he's there in 12th position. He is actually the net lead driver of the drivers who have pitted so far in this race.
Yes, he is, isn't he? Because you said Moo was the very early pitter, and he's just sitting there in the background. He's had some decent pace as well. He's been consistently lapping 2 minutes flat, high 2 minutes flat, low 2 minutes 1. So we'll see how quickly Boge Franz can try and get past Asturbo, who picked up another podium last week at Zolder as well. So it's been a fairly decent run of results for Asturbo in that McLaren, who has impressed us really, hasn't he?
Yeah, as I said a couple of rounds ago at Austria, he's got the pace in him. He just hasn't had the luck go his way, been caught up in someone else's incident or made a mistake of his own. That's kind of robbed him of a solid result. See, he's running in 11th position at the moment. I think he's kind of net 12th, 13th place. Currently, he's dropped off the back of WMDR Martin by a fair margin since I last took note of the gap there between the two. But one thing I did want to highlight real quick is the length of the pit stoppers seem to be roughly about 23, 24, maybe 25 odd seconds the time that Bogue France lost in the pit lane there by going in and serving his splash and dash. So we need to try and keep an eye on that gap between him and Alan as to, well, to try and predict who will be ahead of who when it comes to Alan making his stop.
Yeah, that's why I think he needs to clear As Turbo as quickly as possible, and he doesn't want a moo on his case either. They've got Enton just up ahead, who's being lapped. So if Bosch France can get past as he shows his nose in and very nearly clips the back of that McLaren. Whoa, that was close, but he needs to get past, and that may just have compromised him a little bit. He's going to have moo on his case now as they head down the Wellington Straight, but having that slipstream from the McLaren in front should just keep him ahead. As actually, has Turbo got a problem? He seems to be pulling over and he's letting moo past as well.
I think he was just letting both the two drivers go through, knowing that they're on alternate strategies. There's no point in fighting them and holding them up. I was going to say that we just saw the difference in lines there going through the loop section. As Turbo taking the wider, more swinging the car in kind of approach, whereas Bogue France taking that tighter, more direct line in. They're just two cars kind of meet in the middle. They wouldn't have done that again if they were still following each other going into the following lap. The line that As Turbo took is usually the quicker line, but it does make yourself very open and susceptible to the kind of move that Bogue France was almost pulling off there. I think Bogue France didn't intend to go for the move. It just kind of, they ended up being very, very close there at the apex. Possibly just a slight misjudgment, but there's no contact, so no harm, no foul there. And yeah, moo closed up a reasonable amount with that as well. Obviously, with As Turbo getting out of the way, it leaves these two to fight relatively freely. Oh, dearie me.
Yeah, and this is going to be costing Bogue France now. Let's see what his lap time is now. He obviously was passing and defending on that previous lap, 201.5, half a second slower than Alan. So this always moo gets very much out of shape as they come through turn 2, and that's just released the pressure a little bit on Bogue France and actually brought As Turbo back into the equation a little bit. So now, maybe with that little bit of a let-off, let's see if Bogue France can pick his pace up a little bit. But of course, moo has been very fast. He said a 2-minute flat 0.3 only a couple of laps ago. So we just have to see how this one sorts itself out. Now, just going to see how Tripp is doing. He's still sat there behind that Porsche. So some very patient driving going on this evening.
Yeah, plenty of drivers probably thinking of the longer game, trying to look after the tyres a little bit more. I think usually with the practice races, some drivers will probably be a little bit more aggressive in terms of their strategy, just try and push the boundaries and see what they can get away with. And then obviously when it comes to actual proper race night, where points are actually on the line, they kind of learn from what they took and found out in the previous practice race the night before, and kind of dial themselves back a little bit for the safer option here to try and bag the points where it matters. So Tripp following Hans Olti for the moment. A slight wriggle there from Tripp, possibly getting very close to the back of the Porsche driver, but no contact. It was just a bit of an odd wiggle, maybe just a little bit of over-rotation going through Stowe corner there. He's now dropped back just over half a second or so. And yeah, 0.6 of a second off his previous fastest in the high 201s. Alan did a 201.1 on that previous lap. What is Bogue France and moo going to be doing this time round? I think they must have come over the line by now. Indeed they have. And Bogue France with a 203.0. So at the moment, the ball is swinging to Alan's favour, especially as moo has now got past the Mercedes driver as well and has slotted himself up into the current 11th position.
And this puts him in the seat now, doesn't it, to take that 5th place if he can keep his pace up as well. So I think that battle between Alan and Beauge France are going to end up being for 6th place when this all sorts itself out. But just keeping an eye on some of these battles now. We've seen Trip WMDR Martin's been behind Fubar for a little while as well. Let's see if we can find some of the cars a little bit further down the pack, if there's any close ones there. I keep getting these exclamation marks, but that's because they're being lapped, unfortunately. But yeah, I think Moo's probably going to find himself in 5th place when all this sorts itself out.
Yeah, I think so. I think he's going to be in and around that ballpark area, as you say. Ooh, Lumi and Yogurt swapping positions. I just saw there on the leaderboard. What was that about?
I think the gap came down quite a bit, so I don't know what happened there. Lumi took 6/10 out of Yogurt on that previous lap. So I'm not really sure what happened there, but he is an awful lot closer than what he was about a lap ago.
Yeah, I think it might have just been a slight timing glitch or something like that, because as you say, Yogurt's been running ahead of Lumi. The gap has been coming down, as we are both pointing out. The gap now down to 1.8 seconds. Yeah, 6/10 on the previous lap. So we can see the Ginetta up in front of him. Ginetta having a pretty lonely race. He's been running some solid lap times. Nice and consistent has Yogurt so far in this race. He just doesn't have the speed of Dynamite Alive or Strongest Avenger. Probably the little engine and the Ginetta not quite having the grunt down the straights to really complement what it can do in the corners. Dynamite Alive and Strongest Avenger a good 14 to 18 seconds up the road respectively, and the gap between Strongest Avenger and Dynamite Alive hasn't really changed all that much. It's still kind of in around 6 seconds. Yeah, it has been slowly increasing, but it's been at a very slow, steady rate.
Yeah, it's very gradual incline in that gap for Strongest Avenger, isn't it? Actually, let's just keep an eye on these timings actually to see the penalties. Well, it's in Strongest Avenger's favour at the moment. He's got a 3-second penalty to Dynamite Alive 7, so it's looking good here for the championship leader to extend his championship lead. Let's just have a look a little bit further on down the field. There's a fair few penalties being handed out as well, so it's looking good for the Aston Martin at the moment.
Yep, it just needs to keep a level, calm head and keep on doing what he's doing. Although Dynamite Alive did a 59.9 on the previous lap and took a little bit of time out of Strongest Avenger. I think the time that he did take out was due to a time penalty, which probably contributed to that 2:02 lap time, because the gap hasn't changed a drastic amount when we were talking about it just a few seconds ago. So it's 3 seconds at the moment. I think it may have just increased by a second just before we opened up the that standings table there. Yeah, just to take a look at those penalties, but no real change on the previous lap in terms of the gap between Lumi and Yogurt, as As Turbo is now into the pit lane.
Yeah, he's dropped out of that fight now that he was behind Beauge France and Tripp. So the McLaren making his pit stop. So look to WMDR Martin, who's still behind Fubar. Seen these two together on track a few times this season already.
Yeah, we have. We got another repeat here in round 7. Gap within a second for the moment. Martin there in 10th position, but has got Moo closing up behind, as well as Beauge France. So I think this is a battle for just outside the top 10. Very, very close to it. So kind of in and around 12th position, I think, fight is for. And kind of pace is Martin doing at the moment. Low 202s, same with Fubar on the previous lap, so pretty evenly matched between the two drivers. In fact, less than 100th of a second between the two of them on that previous lap. Yeah,
kind of the trend we've been seeing for most of the season, really, hasn't it, between these two? But they're running fairly consistently. Oh, actually, no, I keep getting that timing thing pop up on my screen about Lumi getting closer, and then when we look, it's actually not as close as we think. But he's still there. He's a little bit slower on that last lap, though, than Yogurt, unless that's just the timing. He was a fraction slower on that previous lap, so Jorgek's just upped his pace a little bit, and it shows that Ginetta, when the fuel load comes down a bit, it's still more than capable of holding its own. But do you really think he'd be able to hold out towards the end?
Oh, it's going to be very, very tight between the two cars. I think once the Lamborghini does get up into the slipstream, it will start to close up onto the back of the Ginetta a fair bit quicker. As obviously Jorgek's making use of the clear air in front of him and using all the downforces. Martin is now into the pit lane, serve his mandatory stop. And you can see his pit crew towards the end of the pit lane, which he'll quite happily stop within without being impeded, and hits his marks rather nicely.
Very quiet pit lane he came into there, wasn't it? And let's see where this is going to bring him out in. I'll just go back to the battle, and Tripp's got past Huntzeller now.
Yeah, two drivers having swapped positions, so the question now looms over Tripp's head as to whether he can actually pull away from the Porsche behind him, or whether Huntzeller can keep pace and try and fight for that position back. They are running in 7th and 8th position at the moment, but of course they're both yet to serve their mandatory pit stop as they're on lap 27 out of 43, so they've still got a good number of laps to go before we reach the end of the race, obviously over the halfway mark by a good few laps. And just looking at the various gaps, it seems like Dynamite Alive is closing up slightly onto the wards Strongest Avenger. Gap still in and around 4.5 seconds. But yeah, we haven't really seen too much of the front pair in this race.
No, we haven't, have we? And you're right, that gap has come down. Normally, if there's an issue, it sorts itself out within a few seconds or so, but it's still there at about 4.5 seconds it's classing as now. But it's like Strongest Avenger's just coming up to some lap traffic as well. Well, they don't really give us much of a reason to look at them when they're this dominant, do they? It's a bit like watching the Mercedes in Formula 1 at the moment. So let's see how close Dynamite Alive can make this fight. And Lumi is also now really starting to put the pressure on Jorgek now. The gap is now under a second.
Yeah, I think Jorgek pushing hard has possibly picked up a penalty on the previous lap at 202.7. That's 2.4 seconds slower than Lumi was on the previous lap, but the gap doesn't reflect that because obviously the gap has only come down from about 1.8 seconds down to 1 second. So it's the time penalty that Jorgek must have picked up that is accounting for the difference there, as both the two drivers fling themselves into Maggots and Beckett's. We've got another driver into the pit lane. It's Esteban Carrera, Stefan Curry, our lead coordinator. He comes into a very empty, lonely pit lane, apart from obviously the few drivers who have retired from the session. How many drivers are actually running now? We are down to 25 in total.
Yeah, been a bit of a quiet afternoon for last week's second race winner, Stefan Carrier. He was over the moon when we spoke to him after the race. He did win it due to time penalties in the end, but he drove a very clean race to take victory ahead of Jorgek last week, and he's come out ahead of Gwegwin.
Right in front of him.
Yeah, absolutely, in the Bentley. And it looks as if we've got one of the first of the front runners in. Oh, that's Alan into the pits. So now let's see where this brings him out relative to Boge, Franz and Moo.
Unfortunately, it didn't actually catch the gap in the last few laps between those two drivers. I'd been watching it a little bit, mainly in the 5 to 6 laps after Boge France had dived into the pit lane. So yeah, got no real idea as to where they're going to come out in relation to each other. It looks like Moo's going to quite easily slip on through. There is Boge France just having come out of the final turn. I think Boge France may actually have it here, as Alan's just getting released from the limiter, comes up out of the pit lane, and there he sees the Mercedes AMG slipping on past. He's got a car to his left. Does a good job of spotting that last minute, and gives the room to avoid going into the side of him. Avoids the side swipe there, but yeah, looks like Alan's lost out by about a second or so.
Yeah, he has. We didn't really see Bose France's pit stop, so we don't know how much. Well, I'm not sure how much longer he was stationary for. But now he's got that work to do again, and he's got to do it on track this time, and has got to make it stick. Now, the main question as we head towards lap 30 is how long will the front runners be able to eke out their strategy, as it looks like Strongest Avenger has really re-cemented his lead now. Both he and Dynamite Alive are back into the 1 minute 59s. So is Lumi, actually, who is now right on the back of Yogurt.
Yeah, I was just seeing that the timing seems to glitch out just as they go past the pit entry there. It's half a second between the two, some lap traffic there, staying very nicely to the right hand side and not interfering with the battle as they fling themselves through that first turn. Both of them staying legal with the white line there on the exit, which I think is probably where the majority of the penalties have been cropping up from. The only other place where they probably quite easily pick up penalties would be Cups Corner, through Maggots and Beckett's, or through Stowe Corner. Maybe the final turn as well, as they run out a little bit wide over the curb there on the exit. But Lumi now very much within the slipstream of the Ginetta in front. He just needs to work himself into a position in a range where he can try and pounce and make a move, but he just needs another couple of car lengths before he can do that.
Considering how strong we've seen this Lamborghini going through Maggots and Beckett's, he'll be looking to set himself up for the run down the Hanger Straight. So it looks like Yogurt has him covered going towards Cops through this very fast right-hander. So Lumi staring now. That final podium position is well within his grasp now. They've got a lap car going through Maggots and Beckett's as well. It should be out of the way that it won't affect them too badly. I believe that's the kinky one just up ahead of them. Let's see what kind of a run Lumi has now out onto the Hanger Straight. He is quite close, but let's see how close he can get going down towards Stowe.
Yeah, so he's a good 3 car lengths or so back at the moment, but he'll be closing up in the slipstream. On the previous attempt of trying to get past the driver coming into Stowe Corner, Lumi went for the lunge down the inside, trying to make use of the downforce on that Lamborghini, but it's going to be hard pressed to beat the downforce and the aero efficiency of Yogurt, who goes and has to give way to Lumi as he was a little bit later on the brakes and kind of semi-dive bomb there. Very well read by Yogurt to give the room to Lumi. Manages to hold on to that third position for the moment, but that was almost an opportunity for Lumi to slip on through. They just settle themselves back down once again and regather their composure and their thoughts from what was probably a slight butt-clenching moment for the pair of them.
And for me as well. I honestly thought they were going to make contact, but Yogurt and Lumi keeping themselves apart. But yeah, this is going to be the last sort of main position that Lumi can make up in this race. And looking at his fuel gauge, he's not going to be far away from making his pit stop. Let's see what Yogurt's on. Actually, he's got a little bit more fuel on board than Lumi, but they won't be far away from their pit stops now, surely.
Yeah, they'll probably be thinking of it relatively soon, especially if Lumi wants to try and find an alternate way of getting past Yogurt as well. If he manages to slot himself back into some clear air, it'll probably make it a little bit easier to try and pass Yogurt and get himself up onto that final podium position. Just looking at the track map to see where the gaps are behind. Speedy Go is 17 seconds down the road, and then there's a fairly big gap behind him, in fact. So if he did pit now, he'll be in a pretty good position to run in some clear air, pretty much unimpeded, and see if he can make the difference in terms of the strategy.
There's an advertising board along the start of the Hanger Straight there. Someone's obviously gone through there earlier in the race, but it's sort of well off the racing line, as neither of them come into the pits just yet. I think I just saw while we were looking at that, someone came into the pit lane, but I wasn't entirely sure who it
Kieran.
was. Kieran, and where has he
16th.
brought himself back He's in 16th place, so he's having a decent run as well. Let's just have a little bit down now. Let's see how Alan and Bo Schranz are going to have a look. Actually, I'll just stay with these two, actually, as Lumi goes a little bit closer as they come now towards Aintree and onto the Wellington Straight. Just getting the car a little bit loose on the exit there. If I were him, I'd probably be inclined to pit now and maybe try it and undercut Yogurt, because it seems as if that Jeanette is making itself pretty wide at the moment.
Yeah, he's running some very solid lines and some solid pace, not making it easy for Lumi to get close enough to really go for the lunge and go for the move. Obviously, we saw him lunge earlier on, but I think that was a bit more of an innocent mistake on that sense. Thunderous sound of the Bentley in the foreground there, drowning these two cars out, sounding absolutely fantastic, but unfortunately as a back marker, he'll be getting out of the way of these two drivers as we come into Max and Beckett's now. Sling them on through. Yogurt holding a nice tight line, Lumi following him on through. Both the two cars look pretty much equal pegging, a little bit more front end washout for Lumi coming off the exit of the corner there, which has slightly hurt his run. There's the Bentley on the right hand side getting out the way of the two drivers. Yogurt very aggressive with the gears, shifting down there, getting the car tucked into the apex quite nicely. And they're going around for another lap. We're going to have 11 laps remaining. Both drivers taking a fair amount of grass and curb on the inside there.
Yeah, don't mind it, do they? I've noticed that these front guys don't mind sticking their wheels a little bit further out than conventionally do. But seems like they've got the definite car control to keep it pointing in a straight line as Lumi again getting very, very close to the back of that Ginetta. But Yogurt driving very, very nicely at the moment. Again, let's just see Lumi's run as they come out onto the Wellington Straight. He likes to take plenty of curb on the outside of the loop section, I've noticed, but it's not exactly giving him perfect track position at the moment, although I suspect as he goes for the lunge down the inside, they're going to go side by side. Oh, they just about managed to keep each other from banging wheels. He's still there on the outside. Now he should really set himself up for a run towards Cops. Let's see now as they come past the old pit complex. Will he be able to go on the inside? Yogurt just looked like he was trying to go to the inside. This is going to be a little bit more of a run. This will be a great move if he goes down the inside. They do make slight contact. They just about hang it together. This is getting spicy now as they head towards Maggots and Beckett's.
Yeah, this is very, very good driving by Yogurt. He saw that Lumi was going down the inside and just kind of placed his car perfectly to kind of try and take away the acceleration zone coming off the exit of Brooklands. And then coming through Cop's corner there, just took that sweeping line, gave a bit of a squeeze to Lumi. I think there may have been a little bit of door panel rubbing. Now the roles are being reversed with Lumi starting to nose ahead. He goes to take the racing line, but Yogurt's going to be there on the inside coming into Stowe corner. Side by side once again. Lumi wanted to try and close the gap and squeeze that door shut on Yogurt, but Yogurt was having none of it, positioning his car there and keeping his elbows out and holds on to that third position for the moment, having momentarily lost it. This is going to be, as you say, a very interesting and spicy battle between the two of them. It's been good and fair, respectable so far. Just hard racing between the pair of them. Hopefully it can continue, but no doubt one of them is going to be thinking about the stop fairly soon as Lumi somehow manages to keep his car out the rear end of the Ginetta of Yogurt in front there in Village Hairpin. Managed to do a good job. That's his slight opportunity coming onto the Wellington Straight. He's not quite as close as he was on the previous lap to make the same move, but still shows his nose in the mirrors of Yogurt, who keeps a calm level head, takes his usual sweeping line into the corner and hooks up the apex on the inside. Again, gets a good drive coming off of Luffield and coming through Woodcote. So I don't think we're going to see the same move being made into Cops, which, to be honest, actually surprised me on the previous lap. I didn't think he was close enough for it.
No, I don't think anybody did, but Lumi obviously thought he did and he had a go, but I think everyone can just take a little bit of a breath now as they come towards Maggots and Beckett's. They're not as close as they were on the previous lap. Now, who's going to blink first in terms of the pit stops? But this battle is for a podium position as well, and we know how Yogurt likes to get mixed up with these Lambos, and he's got a fairly good drive off of Chapel as well. So this is very impressive stuff from the pair of them so far. Attack-wise from Lumi and defense-wise from Yogurt. They're clearly showing their class. The pair of them. Actually, is that Lumi going to the pits? No, there was a little bit of a difference on the camera angle there. I thought he was heading for the pit lane, but he was actually looking around the outside. This battle is really, really heating up now, and we are, 10 laps left. There's still plenty of time for Lumi, though, and plenty of time for us to enjoy this as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think you may have just been trying to sell the dummy of diving into the pit lane there on Yorguk. He kind of, as you said, swerved relatively aggressively over to the right-hand side of the circuit. Kind of almost made it look like he was going into the pits, and then at the last moment didn't. But interestingly, they're both running 3rd and 4th position here in this race. They're running 3rd and 4th position in the championship standings as well. Just 4 points separating the two of them. So Yorguk will be wanting to try and hold on to this final podium spot, not only because it'll be another podium in his championship campaign, but also it will help to extend the gap just a tiny bit in the championship points from his main competitor. Dynamite Alive is 25.5 points away from him and in 2nd position, so he's just slightly out of reach. But speaking to Yorguk in the driver interviews that we've had after the previous rounds, he's been saying that he's wanting to try and hold on to the top 3 drivers of Lumi, Dynamite Alive and Strongest Avenger, and see if he can try and get himself in and amongst in between. That's what he's managed to do so far coming into this round, and obviously getting that 3rd position there will help cement his position in 3rd place just a little bit more, as the race leader is now into the pit lane. So in his mandatory pit stop, as Lumi almost thought about having a look around the outside there coming into Stowe, but thought better of it.
Yeah, so of the front runners, the main front runners, we have Strongest Avenger in the pits as well. So Dynamite Alive then takes the lead of this race. Let's just see how long Strongest Avenger is going to be stationary for. And he is away. And here come Yorguk and Lumi again over the start-finish line. They've got Cinderfell right ahead of them, and that's probably not the position that Yorguk wanted to encounter Cinderfell as he goes off the track to get out of the way. But now can Lumi take advantage as he goes round the outside? He's not quite in a position to make it through there, but now can he get a much better run out onto the Wellington Straight? That was probably the worst place and the worst time for Yorguk to encounter that lap traffic. Let's see now if he can defend as they head down towards Brooklands, as Lumi looks to go around the outside. It's going to be a very late move on the brakes. Yorguk takes the title line and manages to hold on to 2nd place for now. Well, how do you call this? This is incredible.
This is absolutely brilliant defensive driving by Yorguk here, placing the car quite well, predictably, making his intentions fairly clear, but just covering off the lines that Lumi may potentially want to make. He just was unfortunate with Cinderfell. The bit of lap traffic there kind of hurt his momentum coming off through turn 1 and kind of put him under threat through 2, 3, 4, 5 and into turn 6 of Brooklands, but he can now settle himself down a little bit more, although Lumi closing up very nicely here, coming through the Maggots and into the Beckett section. Who's going to have the better line coming off the exit? Oh, that's very wide for Lumi. Just about manages to gather it back up, but that's hurt his momentum and his opportunity of trying to make a move coming into Stowe Corner. Saw that speedy go was into the pit lane, and he served his mandatory pit stop. 2 drivers, they almost seem inseparable at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. And here comes Lumi then. Lumi is the first one of them to make his pit stop. So it's now down to what Yorguk can do on this lap now, because you would probably imagine now that Lumi's in the pit lane, Yogurt is surely going to have to make his pit stop at the end of the very next lap.
Yeah, I would have thought so. If I was Yogurt, that's the move that I'll be doing to try and cover that one off and prevent him from taking that third position away there. There is Speedy Go, actually very close to the back of Alan. A battle for ninth position. In fact, scratch that. It's the battle for 8th position because Alan is still there, lurking on the rear of Bogue France, who's actually looking down the inside of Fubar. So it's this battle for 7th. There's 4 cars fighting away here. Yeah, let's keep adding cars onto this fight.
Yeah, please do, because Tripp's behind them as well, but I think he's a little bit behind, a little bit further behind. So Bogue France is now up into 7th place. Lumi still in the pit lane.
That was a very long stop.
It was, wasn't it? He's now back out. He's made his pit stop, and he's now back out behind this battling pair, this battling 4-car train. Sorry. So I wonder what happened in his pit stop.
I reckon he's changed tyres. That's the only thing I can think of there. Or if he had damage that he had to repair. But yeah, he's going to put himself behind this battle here, which they've all made their mandatory pit stop as far as I know. I think the only one that I'm a little bit unsure of is Fubar as to whether he's made his mandatory pit stop. But considering the position that he's kind of in, battling amongst actually no, I don't think Fubar has served his mandatory pit stop yet. Dynamite Alive is now into the pit lane though to serve his mandatory pit stop, and probably unknown to Yogurt, this is probably going to relieve all the pressure off his shoulders, unless Yogurt goes and changes tyres or has a long stop.
Well, he's coming in as well. He's just come in behind Dynamite Alive. So let's see how quick this pit stop is, and this will give us an indication as to where he's going to filter out. Doesn't look like he was changing his tyres, but we'll soon see just how quickly he gets away from his pit stop. That was very quick. So I think that's probably cemented his place on the podium now.
Yeah, quick splash of fuel. Saw it jump up to 18 litres there. Dynamite Alive is back out onto... Wait, is Dynamite Alive ahead of Strongest Avenger? He is! A second between the two.
Wow.
My oh my, how the tables are turned.
Well, I didn't see that coming. We were so focused on the battle for 3rd, we completely forgot about the battle for the lead. And Strongest Avenger has lost his lead to Dynamite Alive. That must have been a very, very quick stop from Dynamite Alive. But we now have a fight for the race win.
Yeah, I did actually notice that Strongest Avenger did come out of the pit lane with a good 35 odd litres of fuel, which was more than enough than he needed, but yeah, for whatever reason, I didn't clock that that's more than he needed, and probably would have cost him time because of that. As you can see, Dynamite Alive has now only got 20 litres of fuel as Hunzolti is into the pit lane. So a change of position there, but Strongest Avenger is immediately back on it, on the pace, and he's seeing that Lamborghini in front of him. He's pressing on. He's got that gap within a second already, and he's got it down to a good 7/10 of a second or so as they come out onto the hangar straight.
Well, at least we're going to get some action now between the two leading drivers we've mentioned earlier. We've barely seen them. Well, they've given us a reason to have a look at them now as Dynamite Alive comes up to lap one of his fellow Lamborghini drivers. But I think that caught us all by surprise. I certainly didn't expect to see Dynamite Alive in the lead of this race. But it looks as if Strongest Avenger has definitely now got the pace to get that back. It's just how quickly will he get it back?
Yeah, no doubt Dynamite Alive will be pushing on hard as well to try and hold that gap. Still lurking in and around. That's now increased back up to a second or so, just coming through that final turn there. Although Strongest Avenger coming from first gear, Lumi trying to make his way through the battling drivers after his pit stop. He's managed to dispatch Fubar relatively quickly. He's now got Speedy Go here in front of him. Both France and Alan have disappeared off into the distance. You can see them just going into Stowe corner now, and Lumi closing up on Speedy Go fairly substantially, going into the braking zone there for Stowe, but didn't quite have enough braking zone to really pull up alongside. Dynamite Alive turning the wick up. He's got that gap back up to a second and a half over Strongest Avenger.
Yeah, he's certainly not slacking any pace, is he? As Lumi gets caught on the curves, that's going to put him wide out of the final corner. I could probably imagine there's plenty of frustration going on inside his head at the moment, considering how his race started and how he's really wringing the neck of that car now, and he may even lose a position if he's not careful.
Yep, I have a question for you though. What are the penalties currently like for the drivers at the front?
Good question.
Dynamite Alive, 10 seconds. There you go. Strongest Avenger 4. So he's not going to be pushing too hard to try and make that up.
Yogurt.
38-second penalty. That must have been for passing a car off the track to get 30-odd seconds. Providing he's got evidence of that, he can take that to the stewards and get that 30 seconds removed. Otherwise, he will probably end up dropping behind Moo, Bogue France. Well, probably all the way down to about 8th, 9th position with that, which will be very unfortunate for him. But yeah, providing he's got evidence of him gaining or getting a 30-second penalty for overtaking a car off the circuit, providing that is how he's managed to get a penalty that big, he should be able to get that cleared, providing it's a valid excuse for running out wide and overtaking a car off track.
Yeah, we've seen a few of those penalties overturned in the last couple of weeks. Let's see now if Lumi can have a better run on Speedy Go as they come onto the Hanger Straight. A little bit of moving around by Speedy Go, that's fair enough. Lumi's not right alongside him, he's allowed to pick his line. Lumi getting very close under braking into Stowe as they head down towards the Vale chicane. This will be one hell of a move if he goes up the inside here, and he's not going to. But yeah, you're saying Dynamite Alive is trying now to stretch that gap as Fubar does now make his pit stop, so he will drop out of this fight now. I wonder where he's going to filter back out, maybe around about WMDR Martin and that's Turbo.
Yeah, potentially I think possibly a little bit behind them. If it's a 20-25 second gap, my god, Lumi came very, very close to the back of Speedy Go there in the braking zone for Village. Just about managed to avoid the back of the Ginetta having to take voiding action. Actually really lost any ground having run deep there. Managed to claw it back up. Possibly Speedy Go having some troubles himself, or potentially getting scared seeing the Lamborghini close up so suddenly in his mirrors. But here is Lumi swinging around the outside, coming into Brooklyn's corner, gives the room to Speedy Go on the inside there as the Ginetta was starting to come back at him a little bit in towards the apex. But overall, Lumi managing to take that position away and now slots himself up into 7th place. 2.6 seconds to Alan up in front. He's got 3.5 laps in order to do that. I think he's got his work cut out for him a little bit, but not entirely out of the question.
No, absolutely not. And if Bosch, Franz and Alan, who have been pretty much nigh inseparable through most of this race, if they start battling a little bit more, may allow the Lamborghini back up onto the back of them. And Dynamite Alive is stretching that lead now. It's about 2 seconds now, and I'm just going to have another quick look at the penalty count. I do apologize. It was 5 seconds, so yeah, it looks like a bit of a push for Dynamite Alive, but he is opening that gap up. Strongest Avenger's going to have to pick his pace up a little bit here. Yeah,
he's still got some more time to find in order to hold on to that race win as Alan and Bogue France swing it into Vale chicane. Two drivers as they were earlier on in the race, but Alan might actually have a bit of a run here. He's sliding up alongside on the outside, coming in towards the first corner, but will most likely slot in behind, take the apex, going for the switchback. He's going to be on the outside coming through turn 2, gives Bogue France plenty of room, but he's going to have the inside line this time coming into Village corner. Two drivers probably giving each other more room than they actually need, but Alan has managed to slip up into that 5th position, taking that away from the newer generation Mercedes AMG. That was a move that has probably been waiting and orchestrated pretty much all race long, playing over and over in Alan's head. He finally took that opportunity when it presented itself, but Bogue France still lurking here at the back, isn't going to go down without a fight as Alan goes a little bit deep, going through Luffield, gives the room to the inside. This is going to be side by side on the exit, and it's going to be a drag race down towards Copse Corner.
Yeah, well, we thought the fight was settled. It certainly isn't, as Beauge France has the inside for Copse. That should give him the position, but Alan will probably have a better run on the exit. And I did say if these two started fighting, Lumi would be behind them, and there he is. So we're going to have a three-way fight here for 5th place. And I've just realised that Moo has fought himself back up into 4th, so a good recovery drive as well by Moo. But I would imagine Lumi's right on the back of Alan now. This is going to be encouraging for him now to at least move himself back up into 5th place.
Yeah, can he replicate that move that he pulled off earlier in the race though, where he dived down the inside, coming here into Stowe? He looked like he's not going to be close enough this time round as Alan takes his usual racing line and prevents that move from happening. But Lumi's had a pretty good run through Stowe Corner. Again, not quite close enough coming into the braking zone for Vale, as both France and Alan seem to be struggling a little bit more on their tyres. Lumi looking a little bit more patient, is right there, tucked up underneath the rear wing as Beauge France was really struggling coming in towards the final corner. Lumi's looking to the inside, coming in towards turn 1, but he's not close enough. He's being hindered by the two drivers in front, battling away. He might go for the lunge coming here into the braking zone though. He's going to be trying to go around the outside of Alan as he gets caught up underneath the rear wing of Beauge France. Is now trying to do a switchback coming through the loop and in towards Aintree. If he can get a good drive coming off here, which he's managed to do so, he nips down the inside of Alan, who can seize the position before they get to the apex. He backs out of the throttle there, so Lumi's now up into 6th place, 5th position, locked into the target in front of him. He's closing up but not close enough for Brooklands Corner, and he'll probably continue to follow him on through, coming through Luffield. But if he's got the tyres underneath him, he may fare a little bit better than Beauge France does on the exit, although the Mercedes has pretty good grunt and a pretty good drive off the exit through from the low gears. Yeah, not close enough for Copse.
No, it's probably going to be a bit of more of a move now on the hanger straight if Lumi's just patient now through Maggots and Beckett's. But that was a very nice move he pulled on Alan. Let's see now what type of line these two drivers pull through. Again, tighter from Lumi, just able to get on the power of that a little bit earlier. Now he's going to have the slipstream down the hanger straight. And Beauge France is going to have to go to the inside to defend here. See if Lumi can go around the outside. He wanted to go down the inside. He's going to swoop around the outside. Beauge France is still there though on the inside. That's good defensive as Alan spins in the background.
Oh dear, that was a mistake all by himself. Just getting caught out there. Rejoins back onto the circuit. There's a bit of lap traffic that was just coming into shot there, but he holds on to that position without losing it as Lumi's on the inside coming in through the final corner. This is going to be tight on the exit there, but Lumi manages to slip on through and up into 5th position. Beauge France just struggling on the exit of the Vale chicane there, struggling with the traction. That allowed the Lamborghini driver to slip that position and take that away. Coming on to the final lap of the race, Dynamite Alive is somewhere up the head. There he is, coming through the Maggots and Beckett's complex. 2.5 seconds to Strongest Avenger. The penalties are still the same as they were when we last looked. 10 seconds for Dynamite Alive, 5 seconds for Strongest Avenger, and still the 38 seconds for Yogurt, as they now come into the final sector for the final time here in this round 7 of season 16 for the Apex Online Racing Project Cars 2 GT3 League. I will get that out cleanly at some point. But here he comes, just coming through the final couple of corners to provisionally take the race win here, but then be demoted by the time penalties that he picked up. So the race win will go to Strongest Avenger as he comes across the line with a flash of the lights. He'll be happy with that one after what was probably a bit of a scare for him, seeing the Lamborghini come out ahead of himself after the pit stop phases were done and complete. Here comes Yogurt now through the last couple of turns, in through the final corner in a Ginetta. He'll pick up that final podium spot, but depending on the penalties that he has picked up, he could potentially lose that as Mu comes across the line in 4th position. I think actually he's going to be close enough to Jorguk to knock Jorguk off that final podium spot, even with the 8-second penalty. So I think Mu has gone and actually claimed a solid 3rd position. Jorguk there in 4th. Lumi is now coming to the line. He'll be coming across the line in 5th position. But what's going to happen in terms of the penalties here? Bogfrost goes ahead of Lumi. Lumi gets demoted down behind Speedy Go as well. Such as the time penalty difference. We're going to have to revert back to the official standings at the very end here to see what actually happens. As Tripp comes across the line, Hanzolti will be coming across the line alongside the Bentley, who is a bit of lap traffic. Fubart will be the next one that we see in the Renault RS01. He picks up a provisional P11, provisional P12 for WMDR Martin. As Turbo in 13th position, I think. Obviously, with all the penalties, a few question marks are being raised as to whether these positions are actually solid or not, as Tony Clifton picks up 13th position, it seems. Kieran-Nick in 14th place? Asturbo in 14th, Kieran-Nick in 15th. Then Jack Game, I think, in 16th position. And Smart Black Sheep is down to Lumi as to whether he takes Mu to the stewards to potentially see any penalties there. There are no in-race penalties or stewarding. It's all done post-race. So here is what the results are showing us as the current result. Things could change potentially, who knows. But Strongest Avenger picks up the race win. Dynamite Alive in 2nd place. Mu is being shown as in 3rd position. I think that's pretty solid considering he has no penalties to his name at the current time. P4 goes to Boge France with Speedy Go there in 5th, Lumi in 6th, Jorguk in 7th position, Alan in 8th place, Tripp in 9th, Hanzolti rounds out your top 10.
Then comes Fubar in 11th, ahead of WMDR Martin. Tony Clifton in 13th, ahead of As Turbo. Kieran-Nick comes home 15th, ahead of Jack Game and Stefan Carey. Gwegwyn in the Bentley comes home 18th. Cameron 19th, ahead of Nidalap. Atomic in 21st, ahead of Enton. The Kinky One and Cinderfell, the last of the runners that finished in 23rd and 24th. And Luke and Zenzik are classified of the 26 drivers left at the end of the race.
Yeah, Luke being disqualified there on lap 16, possibly something pit lane related. Zenzik ended up retiring on lap 9. But as we do in all of our races here, we shall go to the commentary box and see if any of the drivers fancy coming for a driver interview, and I see one in there already. Let's pick him up now, and that is our race leader, Strongest Avenger. Congratulations on your result there. Tell us what your race was like, and also tell us what your thoughts and feelings were when you saw Dynamite Alive come out of the pit lane just ahead of you.
Yes, finally a victory. This was probably the easiest race so far in the championship. Not a lot of action in the front. I don't know, just driving consistently and kind of maintaining the pace. I knew that he's gonna jump me in the pits because my car requires a little bit more fuel to be added. Plus, I was repairing some brakes, something else, I don't know. So I was expecting him to jump, but he had some penalties, so I was sure that I'm gonna have the win. At the end, actually, he was a little bit faster. Lambo is definitely faster with lower fuel amount, but I managed to keep behind him very close. So yeah.
Good stuff. Well, at least you knew that it was going to happen. Do you end up taking more fuel than you actually wanted to or needed to?
I think I ended up with something like 7 or 8 liters more than I should, but I don't know. It's just, it happens in the race. Like my calculations weren't so perfect. Basically, Aston has a little bit more horsepowers, I think. so it's faster in the beginning of the race when we are all a little bit heavier. And I was kind of expecting myself to pull away from them, and it actually worked. Kind of, I planned all of this. Like, I was hoping that I will make a gap of about 5 seconds, so I could make up the gap in the pits.
You've been waiting a little while for your third victory of the season, but probably the perfect time to get it with 3 races to go. How does it feel to finally be back on the top step?
Feels very nice. Finally, finally. Well, I started the season by saying if I'm gonna win any race, it's gonna be the first one that we had at Daytona. So, it's kind of expected, but this track is very good for this car. Lots of fast corners, lots of straights. So I could be, there with him.
With Spa coming up, how do you think that's going to suit you?
Spa is also one of the best tracks for this car, and I don't know. It's a reverse grid. We're gonna have the rain. It's gonna be difficult. Plus, these guys are gonna be in front of me. They're gonna start in front of me. So we'll see. I don't know really.
Well, sounds like you have to get your elbows out and see if you can work your way through the field fairly sharpish. I know Dynamite Alive is a bit of a connoisseur, shall we say, as working his way through the grid fairly quickly. I imagine you want to be sticking the nose of your Aston Martin to the rear bumper of his car and following on through.
Yeah, we'll see how is this gonna go. His car is definitely more agile, and he could make those moves a little bit easier. Then I can move my Aston, but I'm gonna try to hassle him and be there.
Excellent. Well, good stuff. Best of luck for the next race at Spa, as you say. And yeah, congratulations on your race win this evening. A very good, solid, strong drive from yourself. Actually, who got the fastest lap of the race?
Well, I think we have the fast.
You do.
ones.
You
Yeah.
do. You both got a 1:59.620. It's a dead heat between the two of you. I think you have to get half a point each. You have to split that 1 point.
Yeah, very good drive from him. Congrats to him as well. He was very close.
Yeah, brilliant stuff. Well, enjoy the rest of your evening, and we shall catch you next week, Strongest.
Okay, see you guys.
Cheers. Congratulations. Bye. I accidentally moved myself out of the commentary box rather than Strongest Avenger. I think it's because he moved himself out of it.
Yeah, he disappeared, didn't he?
Yeah, not moving me. Never mind. Right. Let's get our next driver into the commentary box. Jorgurk, what's...
Hey.
First question, where have all your penalties come from?
Well, let's start with the 30-second penalty. There
Okay.
was sort of a glitch in Silverstone in like the last chicane where if you cut the corner a bit, the game thinks that you overtook someone illegally. So basically, I was having a tough fight with Lumi. He was right on my rear, and I got that illegal maneuver penalty. But I mean, I'm not just gonna let him go, and because I was fighting hard for the position, so I just took it. And I'm probably gonna go to the stewards later to sort it out.
Okay, that's good news. The second question is, how close was Moo behind you at the end there? Do you know?
I think he won by like a 2-second gap because on the last lap I had to save fuel because I accidentally underfueled my car. So basically I wanted to refuel 18 liters, but instead I refueled 17, and that 1 liter difference caused quite a big loss of pace because I had to short shift and run lean. But yeah, there were like a lot of things that I don't really like about the race because in the most important thing in the early laps was that my antivirus popped up in my on my computer, and so it just tabbed me out of the game, so I lost all input control, so I kind of
Oh.
lost 4 to 5 seconds, but thankfully there wasn't any damage, and I'm really angry actually about that because I would have probably taken that P3 if something like that wouldn't have happened. Other than that, it was actually quite a clean drive compared to like the yesterday's race I did in the social lobby.
Yeah, well, unfortunately for yourself, sounds like you had all those problems. But how did you enjoy that fight with Lumi towards the end, just before the pit stop? Sorry.
No, well, that it was a nice fight, but there was a lot of pressure on me because I knew that he was quicker, and so I just was trying to go defensive, but not waste too much time at the same time, and it kind of worked out. But then he pitted first, and then afterwards I pitted, and he had some sort of issues with the pit stop. I think what he said in Discord was that he accidentally repaired his engine damage, so that caused him to drop by like 20 seconds. So he can continue the fight, but yeah, it was good while it lasted.
Yeah, we did notice that Lumi ended up having a much longer pit stop and obviously dropped through the field and kind of relieved the pressure off your shoulders. Looking forward to next week's Spa. How are you thinking your race could potentially go there with the Ginetta?
Or if I could do a result like this in Silverstone, then hopefully I can do something similar in Spa because they're both quite similar, like high-speed tracks with a lot of high-speed corners. So, I mean, I personally like Spa, and I know a lot of other people do as well. But it's really unpredictable because I was honestly expecting the best result for today was a P5, but at the start there was some sort of contact with Lumi and Moo, and that put me in P3. And yeah, anything can happen. But yeah, I'm just hoping for at least a top 5 in all of the upcoming races, and then I'll be happy.
Excellent stuff. Well, hopefully you have another good, strong race next week. Hopefully the results go your way. You do retain your position just ahead of Lumi in your driver's standings, I believe, after today's race. So you're very much there in amongst the top 3, 4 positions. Yeah, Alan's just a little bit further off the back by about 31 points off the back of Lumi. So I think you're clear there and basically in with a good shout of a top 4 by the end of the season.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Well, yeah, we'll let you enjoy the rest of your evening, and we look forward to seeing you most likely again next week.
Yep. See you next week.
Cheers, man. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Bye. Right, I won't move myself this time. I'll stay here in the commentary box.
Not many people looking to be very chatty tonight, it doesn't look like, though.
No, I think relatively long race for the drivers. It's quite a demanding circuit with all the high-speed corners and everything else like that. So the drivers are probably feeling relatively tired and not really willing to chat with us, which is a bit of a shame, but also understandable at the same time. And we look forward to hopefully speaking to a few more of them next week at Spa-Francorchamps. We'll bring the calendar up now for you, just so you can see the remaining rounds. As we've been saying, Spa next week, 30th of September. And then we follow on to Japan. We go over to Sportsland Sugo, and then we round out the championship at Fuji GP. And for next week, there is no qualifying. It's just going to be probably a 5-10 minute practice session, and then we jump straight into the race, which is going to be in reverse championship standings. Is going to be the grid order, so it's going to be an interesting one. For that, make sure you hit that subscriber button on the YouTube page for the AOR YouTube channel, and if you hit the bell notification, you'll be notified each time that we go live. Also, down in the description below is links to mine and Matt's Twitter pages, and it'll be very much appreciated if you followed us there. Matt, did you have any closing words for tonight?
Well, I think Strongest Avenger tonight has really set his stall out now for the championship, and he seems confident going into Spa. Of course, it will be a reverse grid race as well, so there's plenty of action still left in this championship. But with the upcoming rounds, Strongest Avenger has definitely put himself in pole position for this championship.
Yes, very much hitting the nail on the head there, cleanly into the wood with one fell swoop. It's going to be interesting, these final few rounds, so make sure you tune back in so you don't miss out on those. But from us this evening, thank you very much for tuning in and watching tonight. Hopefully see you again next week. Until then, have fun, stay safe, and take care.